You were here.
So I didn't get anything.
Super early.
Yeah. I got my ticket though. My train ticket. Did you get that?
No, because I'm not going anywhere.
I thought Friday maybe we'd go all the time. This is over like 3.
Oh, that's cool.
Even Friday night,
For
right?
contribution, yeah.
We're supposed to be seeing like, I mean, we should go see the castle or the something or
Oh,
other.
that'd be cool. Maybe we'll do
Katie
something.
said, my daughter said that's the place to go.
The
Just to
castle
see.
right in Prague.
Yeah, just to see.
Yeah.
It's in Old Town, though. It's a little ways away, but
Okay.
it's like, has the big clock that you're supposed to see and the.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I would need, I would need emotional support. I would need someone to go with me.
There you go. I could do that. So we should reset this right before we start.
Yeah, just to watch the time.
Yeah,
Hit reset
exactly.
when we get started.
Yeah.
But we've got 8 minutes still.
Right, exactly.
So I might.
Hello.
Hey.
I'm doing this in another session, so I'm just interested in what you're doing. So,
Yeah.
so you're just gonna take that, you're gonna watch the questions on here. Now, we didn't
Yes.
see the questions on the event app.
On the event app, that's good.
welcome. We're here to talk to you about Project Browser. It's going to be mostly an update format, tell you where we're at, tell you where we're headed, and give you plenty of opportunity to ask questions about how you might want to get involved and how you can get involved. So we're here to be a resource. So I'll turn it over to my colleague first.
Hi, I'm Leslie Glynn. I'm the manager of client success at Redfin Solutions up in Portland, Maine. We're a Drupal agency. I'm also one of the initiative leads for Project Browser. And fortunately, I was elected and was on the board of directors for the Drupal Association for a couple of years. So that was very enlightening. I learned a lot there as well. So thanks for coming, and we're looking forward to giving you a lot of information, especially about how you can contribute and how you can get involved in this initiative.
And just to keep going, Leslie's also an Aaron Winborn Award winner, and she'll never say that herself, so I always have to say it. So congratulations to Leslie for all her contributions to the Drupal community, of which this is just the end of a very, very long list. I'm Chris Wells. I'm a member, which means I'm like co-owner of an LLC in America, which is like a GmbH or a limited company. So member and CTO over at Redfin Solutions, as well as Leslie and the other co-leader of the Project Browser Initiative. I built my first Drupal site in 2004, maybe 2005 with Drupal 4.7, and we've never looked back. So we've been a Drupal shop for the last 15 plus years, and also happy to be here and talk about Project Browser. It was finally time for me to get in and get involved in contribution in a big way, so I just kind of kept showing up to meetings and ended up co-initiative lead for Project Browser. And you can find all my stuff at chrisfromredfin.dev. I used to have a very bad online identity problem where I had like different handles everywhere, and then before DrupalCon Portland, I just changed everything to Chris from Redfin. So you can find me just about everywhere at Chris from Redfin. So we first wanted to talk about what is Project Browser. You probably know by now, and you probably know if you've seen the keynote, what we're after, but it's really from Dries' vision for moving Drupal back to a sort of no-code, low-code environment. When we made that leap from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8, it got a lot harder for site builders to just spin up a website. They had to use Composer, they had to solve problems in a lot of very technical ways. So it's about getting back to that. And so in Portland, Dries released his vision for that Drupal is for ambitious site builders. And so we want to empower those people, the ambitious site builders, to work on their Drupal site. And so as part of Drupal 11's strategy, we wanted to be able to discover great modules from right within Drupal without having to go to some external website, without having to go to Drupal.org or the old DrupalModules.com. And we want to install those modules with the click of a button. So the prime directive from Dries was to make it easy for site builders to both find and install modules. And that's what we're after.
All right, so what problems are we trying to solve? The goal is to, in my example here, is to make an easy breakfast. So you go to the grocery store and you see hundreds and hundreds of different types of cereal. How do you know, which cereal box or which module to choose? How can we make that easy for folks? I think there's something like 60,000 modules right now, contributed modules. And how does somebody who's new to Drupal have any idea where to go to find what they're looking for? So that's the problem we're trying to solve. So you need to have some direction. You need to have, a path to enable you to narrow down your search. So we'll show you how the Project Browser helps you to do that. And then checkout. Once you've decided you have a module, you've looked at it, it sounds like it's the right thing. How do you then go and install it? So that's the checkout. How do you actually get this into your Drupal site? One thing that I don't know if I made clear yesterday is the modules, when you search for them, when you go to the store and search for them, by default, it's only going to bring modules that are compatible with the website you're trying to add them to. So I don't know if I was clear yesterday in that, but that's really a key, so that you don't have to worry about going and searching for modules on, you know, Drupal.org right now, it might come back with a Drupal 7 module or a Drupal 6 module even. Now you're only going to get modules that are compatible with your version, so that's a huge win.
Does it also checks the dependencies? So Chaos Tools is already installed, so I see only modules listed which requires C tools.
So I can answer that, yeah. It's going to use Composer under the hood. So if a module depends on CTools, it's going to pull CTools in automatically as well for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we'll go over, you know, the fact that the button changes from download if you don't have it yet, to install if you've already downloaded it, to installed if you've already downloaded and installed it. So it's very clear, the user interface, but we'll get into that in a bit.
Well, this is me. All right. So the first thing that we wanted to approach is kind of the MVP of Project Browser. So if anyone's used agile development methodologies in their projects before, what is the minimum viable product? What can we ship that will bring the most benefit with the least amount of effort? So what have we been aiming for? We have the ability to browse module projects in Drupal in the project browser today. And those are, like Leslie just said, compatible with the version of Drupal that project browser is running inside of. So it won't even show you something that's only compatible with Drupal 7. It's only things that are useful to you on that site. So that's that shopping experience. I want to see what's out there. I want to start comparing. Now, if you're in the grocery store, you might not even know where to start. So you know that you need to find a healthy breakfast. So I might need a signpost that says, here's where the breakfast foods are. You might want to start around here. So we've implemented some of those signposts so far. For example, we will allow you to filter by a category of module. It's using the same categories that you'd currently use today on Drupal.org to narrow down the modules. And then TBD, let's say you actually find your way to the cereal, but now you want to compare and you say, all right, well, I'm actually looking for, if I want a healthy breakfast, I want something that's lower in sugar. So the advanced filtering will actually let you go in and sort of read the labels and say, okay, between this cereal and this cereal and this cereal, which one do I actually want? So we do have some advanced filtering built in now, and there could be more to come as we continue to discuss with the project browser. Okay. And then, right now in the MVP, our goal was to provide instructions for how you would do the checkout portion of your healthy breakfast. So I don't know if we have these in Europe. In America, we've been pushing more and more labor onto the consumer. So we have things like self-checkout machines in America where you have to take your own stuff and scan it yourself and put it in the bags yourself. That's kind of the analogy we're using here. Right now, when you click install, you're going to get a modal window that tells you how to use Composer to install the module yourself. But we are actually very, very close on advancing that and getting it to where it will. You saw in Dries' demo, if you were at the keynote, we have a branch going where we've been integrating with automatic updates to automatically install and run the Composer commands for you under the hood, which is amazing stuff. And that we've been doing all of this in the contrib space so far. Our goal is definitely to get Project Browser into core. It's what we want, it's what Dries wants, but being in contrib lets us iterate quickly and make some decisions that might be a little bit riskier and get them in and get them iterating. It's part of that strategy that Dries talked about in the keynote of getting things done faster, and we can do stuff faster in contrib, so we've been focused on that space. So that's the MVP that we've been headed for. Okay. So we do actually have a beta version of the module that's out. You can get that module today. You can Composer require Drupal/project browser, pull it into your project in beta. You click Browse from the Extend menu. You can filter by categories. And it provides some default filtering that we thought would be the modules that we would really want to push and suggest. And those are ones that are covered by Drupal's security policy and are in some sort of actively maintained type of status. It actually uses a few different of the statuses on Drupal.org to determine whether it's well maintained. But that's already there today. You can go ahead and download it, and we encourage you to do so. Check it out on a demo site, try it on your local, see how it's working for you, and please file issues against it. So what have we done so far to get to the point where we're at today?
So we started Project Browser. The goal of the Project Browser is for site builders and those new to Drupal to be able to easily, find and install modules. So we started with that community. We started with those new to Drupal and site builders, and we held listening sessions or interviews with these folks, and asked them, if you were going to look for browser modules today, how would you do it? And then eventually, how could we make it easier? So those listening sessions, which we're still holding today, we had some UX listening sessions yesterday. Reach out if you want to, engage with us and walk through the current beta version and, answer some of those, interview questions. But those were extremely helpful in trying to gauge the community and how we can best build this, because it's for the community, it's for those new to Drupal and site builders. So how can we get their input to make this something that's going to be useful to that group? So we use listening sessions to do that. So that was our first step. Then, as Chris spoke about a minute ago, but what should the default filter criteria be? If I'm somebody new to Drupal and I'm coming to browse for modules, when I see the first set of modules, what should they meet? What criteria should they meet? So the first thing was, you're in a Drupal project, you're using Project Browser now, not on Drupal.org, external to your website, but right inside your website. So the first thing is, needs to be compatible with your website. So that's the first default filter. The second default filter is, does it have security coverage? Because again, in our interviews with folks, that was the most important thing. I want to make sure that the modules I bring in are secure. So that's the second default filter criteria. And the third one is, as Chris mentioned, is it maintained? So people are interested in modules. One of the first things they look for out on Drupal.org now is, is it actively maintained? Are there maintainers that, is the issue, the number of open issues, is that number dropping? Are they actively upgrading their module? Things like that. So the three defaults right now are compatible with your version, has security coverage, and is it maintained? Okay, so that's what we decided. As Chris said, there's a lot of advanced filtering for you more advanced people in the room. Even though our goal is to have site builders and those new to Drupal, we want everybody using the project browser. So advanced people should be able to say, hey, find me something that's not secure, or find me something that might not be a full release. So that's another thing that's a default criteria is, needs to be a full release of the project. So we don't by default bring back alpha, beta, that kind of stuff. It's got to be a full released version. The third thing is, we got differing feedback on whether a grid view, which is cards, which you're very familiar with. It has the name of the project, the logo, a very short description, and the categories that it belongs to. Is a card view the most useful, or is a longer list view more useful to you? So we provided both. The default is the grid view, the card view, but you can also get a different view, more of a list view. You see fewer there, but there might be a little more information on those cards. So, and then the next thing we did was the categories. So modules right now on Drupal.org, there's different categories you can assign to a module. And I'll talk a little bit more about categories in a bit. But for right now, what we did was we had a group of folks from the community like you try to define what those different categories are. Because right now they're listed, you can select them, but why would you go look for media? What does that really mean if you're searching a category called media or security? What does that mean? So we gave definitions to those. Those aren't yet being displayed in the beta version of Project Browser, but they will be. So we can use help with that as well. So those are some of the things, and Chris will go over a few more here. Oh.
that's me,
Oh,
right?
no, yeah, for descriptions for the categories, yep.
Good.
You're up.
All right, I'm up. So, one of the things that's holding us in beta, and we want to really move and advance, is the way that we are currently getting the data from Drupal.org is that we're actually downloading, we have to generate a gigantic JSON fixture, and when we install the module, we load that to your local Drupal site. So that has to be periodically updated. I just did it last night, and Tim got it committed. So if you get the latest version today, it will have data as recent as yesterday. With that said, if you installed it yesterday, that data was about 5 months old. Last time we updated it was in May. So we're still trying to do maybe monthly is what I hope for, but hopefully now quarterly updates of that fixture data. What we really need is we need Drupal.org or some portion of Drupal.org to be on Drupal 9 so that it can expose this data to us with JSON API and Search API. That's the endpoint that we're using to fetch live data from Drupal.org. So we need collaboration from the association to be able to spin up a live Drupal 9 server where we can fetch this data real time. That's our goal, and I think that's probably the thing that's blocking sort of a 1.0.0 release. But besides that, functionally, the project is all there. So we do have that mock. Then we have in Project Browser now, you can actually look at a detail page. Early on in the project, if you were looking at the card view and you clicked through, it would just take you to Drupal.org to the project page there. Now we actually do have a skeleton version of a detail page built right into Project Browser, so you can get more info, read the full description. That's wonderful, but it's not quite there yet. There's an opportunity to contribute in that arena as well coming up that we'll talk about with our contribution opportunities, as well as updating that category data. And so we did release an alpha and then eventually a beta version, so that's a big accomplishment that we've made thus far. And like I said before, you have instructions for installing via Composer, but that is very, very close that we'll actually be able to click and have it run the Composer commands for you under the hood. We're waiting on just a few policies to get shored up, and we're collaborating very heavily with the automatic updates team to work on that. And then this is probably one of the coolest features that we have, and my boy Fran is right here. He's done so much work in this arena, but allowing for multiple sources of where you can pull data from. So right now, we have that mock Drupal.org plugin. We also have enabled a plugin where you can search for core modules to see what already comes with core and what you might want to install. This is super great and super important for some of our audiences, for example, in higher education, at colleges and universities. They might have a set of modules that they are limited to. Or maybe you're at an agency and you have some of your own features or meta packages or custom modules that you use from project to project to project. You can define your own plugin source and get a new tab on Project Browser where you can search for just your agency's modules and install those as well. So one of the things that I hope to accomplish at this DrupalCon is getting developer documentation ready to show you what is the contract that you need to adhere to be able to provide your own plugin. Okay. So what are we looking forward to? That's what we've got so far. What are we actually headed towards?
Thank you, Chris. One thing on the project source there, if you're new to Drupal, that's not displayed by default, so don't worry that that's going to show up on your default project browser. There'll be configuration in project browser where you can turn on things like the different sources, okay? Just want to make that clear. All right, so what are we looking forward to doing? We want to re-examine the project detail page on Drupal.org and in the project browser. So some of these listening sessions that I spoke of earlier, we're talking to folks and saying, when you go to Drupal.org, when you go to the project page, what are the most important pieces of information that you look at there when determining whether you're going to want to, look further into a module or actually install the module. So there's all kinds of things, a number of new issues, who the maintainers are, there's the project description itself. But none of this is standard across modules. If you go to Drupal.org and look at the project pages, each and every one of them is completely different. Everything's in completely different places, so we're trying to think about, can we standardize that in such a way? So can we put a template in there, especially for new modules as they're created, and they follow a template versus just, put everything everywhere. Module maintainers are great. They do such great work for the community, but they don't often think about how are people going to consume that information that they're putting on those detailed pages. So, the project browser content strategy, the content is critical to project browser. Project browser, we have the tooling all done, but it's only as good as the information that's displayed there, the content. So we're trying to work on the content as well. So what can we do to shore up the Drupal.org detail pages so we display the things that are most useful to the community on those detail pages at the top. Maybe we'll display it all eventually, and there'll probably be links back to Drupal.org page because we may not bring it all over. But we want you to be able to use Project Browser in itself and not have to go to Drupal.org every time. So any help you can provide, any insight would be super helpful to us on that. All right, so one of the initiatives that this team has been working on, especially the Site Builder Subcommittee, and we'll talk about the different meetings we have, but is on the card view in the project browser, there's four important pieces of information: the name of the project or the module, a logo. So a logo appears, and some of the logos, like the web form module has had a logo for a long time, and you see the logo and it's the web form module. There's a lot of modules that don't have logos at all. So if you're a designer out there or a front end, or you're interested in graphics at all, creating those logos for the modules that don't have them, that's a easy opportunity to contribute. So right now we're working on the top 100 most popular modules. Again, the default project browser brings you back the modules with the most used ones first. So the ones you're most likely to install will be displayed first. Those are the ones we're working on trying to get logos for. We're also trying to create short descriptions. Now, not 200 characters or less, but not only short descriptions, but descriptions that our core users, the folks new to Drupal and site builders, will understand. Right now, if you go to Drupal.org, look at the project pages, they're very technical, the descriptions. A lot of times they're written by technical folks. So we're trying to get people like you to help us create non-technical short descriptions to display on the cards in Project Browser. You'll be able then to link to the more detailed description, which could be much more technical, but we want somebody to be able to, on the card, just quickly scan and say, is this something that I should look further into? Is this something that I might want to install on my website? And then the categories. I told you the categories, and we'll talk again about those in a minute, but there are like 55 categories. Some modules have up to 30 categories assigned to them. So when you're looking for a module and you're looking for categories, I go look for Meteor and I get back these, mapping modules. So we're trying to straighten that out in some way. So one of the things we're trying to do on the top 100 most popular modules is select the three most relevant categories that we feel when folks are going to look for modules in the project browser, if they select these categories, these types of modules will appear. So we need help with that as well. All right, the next thing, I went to, but let's go up to there we go. Chris fixed it for me, thank you. Provide a base template for project description. So I spoke about that. So that's creating some kind of standard. The body field right now is just a free WYSIWYG text field where you can put anything in any order. So we're trying to come up with a template. We have a BOF what day is today? Today for the project description. It's at 15 o'clock.
1500?
1500, there you go. So we're trying to figure out how to create a template to use for those body fields so that we can make that stuff more consistent from module page to module page. And the next thing on that is getting maintainers involved. How many people in here maintain modules? Awesome.
All right.
Oh, thank you for coming. So we haven't yet got the maintainers involved as much in this initiative as maybe we should have, but we're trying to get the community first because we want to make sure that this is useful to everybody. But maintainers are super important. So while we've been trying to do the top 100 modules, it's going slow. There's 3 pieces. We're trying to do category, short description, logos. If the maintainers on your modules want to help us out and suggest what those 3 things would be, we're going to have to take what the community has given us and create an issue in your module queue for you to actually make those changes to the description and the categories and all that. If you want to start that yourselves, as long as it's a non-technical short description, by all means, you can certainly help us out, module maintainers. You can also give us feedback on what we talked about here, the template or anything like that. So thank you for coming, module maintainers, and with that, I'm going to pass it over to Chris.
Quick bit of trivia before I get started. Shout out your answer. How many categories is the add this module tagged with? No cheating. How many do you think of the 55? Add this. What's your guess?
8, 11.
Closer? Yep, 30. Okay. How many is the 3rd most popular module for Drupal 9 is Path Auto. How many do you think it's tagged with? 0, right? Okay, so we've got to clean this data up. This is like one of the most important things. We can build the best, slickest looking tool, but if garbage comes in, garbage goes out. So we've got to focus on that stuff, super important. So what are we looking forward to? I already talked about this. We want to migrate from that mock API to a real live Drupal 9 backed API. That's basically, that proof of concept is done, it's working, and like I said, we're waiting on really infrastructure and the association. So that part we're pretty excited about. Replacing the install instructions with actual composer commands, that is very, very close, as I've said before. So like in the demo, Shristi had said, if you have the experimental version installed, which is not really experimental, it's just some kind of branch that we have that she was able to install, but we need to get that merged into mainline, and we'll be able to actually one-click install to add modules to your Drupal site and to its code base, which is very cool. I tried doing this in Portland. I hit my head against the wall a bunch of times and I eventually gave up, but we would love to capitalize. We were one of the projects that were empowered to use GitLab CI instead of Drupal CI. Thanks to Tim Plunkett and some of his knowledge of testing, we were able to get Drupal CI spun up, but not GitLab CI. Anyone with some DevOps experience, I know a good amount about GitLab CI, but I don't know a lot about Drupal CI or how tests are run and that sort of thing, so we're looking for collaborators on that. That's definitely something we'd love to focus on. Like Dries said, those tools are going to empower us to just move faster, and that's what we want to do. So looking ahead of that. And I don't know if you knew this, but Dries was talking about how great it would be to have a prototype module built with a modern front end. Our front end is built in Svelte. We are using Svelte to build the components out for the project browser. We are committed to leaning as hard as we can into getting this into core with Svelte. But one of the things holding that up is when you decouple, all of your themability gets lost. You have to override the Svelte app or you have to build your own Svelte front end. So we are trying to pioneer the way to make the Svelte markup themable using a Drupal system. We have a proposal for that. Ben Mullins has thought long and hard about a way that we could do that. That needs people with enough of an understanding of that to look at it and review it, make suggestions, and see if that's a way forward that we want to go. Because if we can not lose Drupal's themability and get a modern front-end framework, that's the brass ring. We are super excited about that. So I don't know, is that an expression that anyone knows, the brass ring? It's like if you're on a carousel, a merry-go-round, you used to be able to reach up, and if you could reach the brass ring, you could get a prize. So that's kind of like what you're going for. So that's what we're going for. We really want to make the Svelte side themable. So we hope that there's some people that can jump in, people who know a little bit more about all those pieces than I do, to review that. And the other thing that I really wanted to touch on is how much all of these initiatives tie in together with the grand vision for Drupal 11. So we have been working nonstop with Ted Bowman and people in the Automatic Updates initiative to look about how we can do these automated installs. We knew that we were already automatically running Composer Update. Why is it so hard to run Composer Require? We were able to collaborate with that team. Ted himself did a lot of work towards abstracting stuff out that he did in Automatic Updates into the Package Manager submodule that will let not just us and not just Automatic Updates, but your module, if you want, whatever the next thing is that comes along, to update Drupal's code base from the UI. So I think Ted is giving a presentation about abstracting that out and what Package Manager can do for you later today, so I may see some of you there as well. But also, I am so excited about what's coming up in the realm of Drupal recipes. When we started early on, we were talking about the idea of, we don't just want to filter by category, we really want to think about what is the use case that I'm using Drupal for. I want to add mapping. I want to be able to put locations on a map. I want to build a cookbook site. I want to make a blog. I want to add a publishing workflow. All of these things in Dries' idea of composable core, we can now, I'm looking forward to extending Project Browser to be a recipe browser so that you can go through and say, well, what kinds of recipes, multiple modules and config put together will solve my use case. So I'm very excited to see what happens in distributions and recipes so we can help them build a browser for that functionality. All right, so why should you contribute and help us out?
All right, just one thing I thought about while you were speaking about what we used to call use cases, which are now recipes. Instead of distributions where you'd bring the whole chunk of stuff in and you couldn't add or delete, recipes will just bring groups of modules in so that you can add, you know, this recipe and that recipe and that recipe to your fully functioning Drupal website. It's not going to be, it's based on a distribution and you're kind of locked into that. So I just want to make that clear. So that's going to work a little different, and it's really exciting for us to be able to have a user say, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. They might not have any idea which modules they need, but they're trying to accomplish something, so let's bring all that stuff in. So we're really looking forward to what Alex and that initiative team are doing. And they took it off of us, because originally that was on our, you know, down the road list, so that's cool. All right, so.
Put the first one up for you.
Oh, you did? All right, now I have two. That's all right.
I'll just put them all up.
Oh, there you go. All right, so why should you contribute? The folks in the room here. Contributing, we're trying to make it easier and easier. This is one of the best initiatives to contribute to, because you can do something like, you know, I don't have it up here, so go and add a logo. Create a short description. Those are small. You can do that, you know, you're stuck on something at work, you know, spend 15 minutes, a half hour, and contribute in those little teeny ways. You don't have to spend 4 or 5 hours and do something really big. You can do all these little small things just when you have time, so definitely think about that. But it's a chance for site builders and those new to Drupal to contribute. As I said, we had these listening sessions. They're reviewing some of our descriptions to make, you know, to say, do these make sense to me? Could I go in and look at these category descriptions or these short project descriptions? You know, is it helpful for me as a, you know, somebody newer? Do I understand those? So if you're new in the room here, don't think you can't contribute. You definitely can contribute.
There are so many non-code contribution opportunities in Project Browser, more than so many others. So
Right.
even just, you know, especially if you're a non-native English speaker, can you come in and review the 200 character English description and make sense of it? Does it make sense to you? Great, you can review it and say, this, I think this is good. We just need so much of that.
And then it's a holistic approach to the project content on Drupal.org. So really, as Chris said earlier, content is king. Content is the basis of the project browser. So we need to get the content in good shape in order for the project browser to be successful. So your help in that will be great. And then, you know, using some of the new tools that Chris talked about, like Svelte and GitLab CI, et cetera. You know, if you're interested in those tools, if you want to learn what Svelte is and and how it works and how we use it in the project browser, by all means, we're not just looking for new folks, we're looking for, experienced contributors as well to come in, learn these new tools, and help us learn some of this stuff as well. So if you know GitLab CI, by all means, come and help us out, or Drupal CI, as Chris said earlier. So there's opportunities for everybody for that.
That was it. Sorry, I accidentally advanced. Don't give me the pointer. I don't know. All right. So there are so many opportunities here at DrupalCon for you to contribute, and we'd love to see you there. Oops, too late for some BOFs yesterday. We did listening sessions and usability testing. With that said, we got really great feedback. We had about 5 people show up. It was the perfect number for us to be able to keep up with people, but still doing that. You can do that on your own by spinning it up and just giving us some feedback in the issue queue. You can find me in the general contribution space. If you see me there, I'll help you get spun up and just have you play around. So there's still opportunities to do that. So today at 1500, we are going to do a BOF to look at those Drupal.org project pages. Let's pull up a project and let's look and say, useful, not useful, useful, not useful, wish we could fix this. Love to hear your feedback on that. It will inform both the in-browser experience and the experience on Drupal.org. And then tomorrow at 1500, we will be looking at those project categories. I keep going back to the fact that we have a CCK category on Drupal.org. We haven't cared about CCK since Drupal 6. Is it time to get rid of that category, to retire it like we did IE6? Just give it a good funeral, say, we love you, CCK, thank you, but you do not serve our community anymore. Can we get those 55 down to something? Can we get the descriptions that make sense so that we know what to tag them with? So would love to see you there. Friday all day, we've got tons of opportunities. Leslie will be in the mentored contribution room if you have not contributed before and you just need help with some of that process. If you have contributed before, you're aware of how we contribute to Drupal, then you can find me in the general contribution space. We've got front-end issues, Svelte issues, DevOps and workflow with GitLab CI, back-end issues, ideas that need someone else to put their brains on it, and a lot of more usability, feedback, design, UX experience. So we'd love to see you on Friday if you're still here in Prague for the contribution day. And then ad hoc, Leslie you can see around. She'll be more in the mentored contribution space, and I will be in the general contribution space, in between sessions. So would love to have you. Like I said, I'm also wanting to do a bit of technical writing and documentation while I'm here, so would love to have you work on that with us today. After DrupalCon, if you would like to get involved, pound project-browser on the Drupal Slack. Site builders, and so those focused on the data, the content on Drupal.org and focused on the user experience and user interface. That is, oh, you fixed the times. Thank you. They're a little bit late. That meeting is a little bit late. It's 4 p.m. Eastern, but at 2200 European time, that meeting happens. It is asynchronous, so we'll run that meeting and we leave it open for 24 hours. So if you have feedback the next morning, that's totally acceptable and you'll get credit for participating in the meeting. The general meeting is a little bit more focused on the coding, the doing, issue triage. That happens at 1600 European time. And also, of course, the issue queue just has stuff that you are welcome to look at and pick off. Okay. Oh, yeah.
So I just wanted to thank all the contributors who are here, who have helped so far. I spoke about the categories and the descriptions. Martin back there was instrumental in creating all those descriptions. Saw you back there, so I want to make sure I gave a shout out to you and all the others that have helped out so far. All right, so Chris went over some of this before. In the middle, on Friday, there is during the week there are these first-time contributor workshops to get the tools to get you set up with contributing. Don't be too concerned about that. You can come and contribute in some of the stuff that I talked about, the descriptions, the logos, that kind of stuff, without having any tools on your machine at all. You just come. I'll show you how to spin up the issues. We have a Kanban board that needs work and then needs review, so you can come and review things that people have already done, or you can create these things on your own. But there are 3 sessions there for contributing workshop. I think there's only one left on the 23rd, which is Friday, from 9 to 12:30. And then there's the mentored contribution room. If you want to work on the stuff that I've talked about, those 3 major things for the top 100, come to the mentored room. If you want to get more into the coding and more into Svelte and get lab and CI and all that, go to the general contribution room with Chris. Find us anytime during, today, tomorrow. Stop us, say, hey, I want to talk to you about the project browser. You don't have to wait, especially if you're not going to be here Friday. Reach out to us today. Just stop us wherever you happen to see us. But those are all great opportunities. And I don't know if you realize that you get contribution credits nowadays, not just for doing code, but all these non-code contributions. Helping us with any of this gives you contribution credit. And the community really appreciates everything that everybody does for the project. All right.
Good. We've got about 5 minutes. Not as much time as I thought we'd leave you for questions, but happy to field any questions in the last 5 minutes.
He's gonna.
You can see this gentleman here.
Hi. We translate Drupal, but we don't translate Drupal.org. So you're moving a piece of content and management stuff from Drupal.org into the local Drupal site, and the top 100 modules and etc. When we're pushing things back to site builders down the road, is there like an idea that all these modules and things need to be essentially translated? So that we're essentially making the site able to be in any context and also be extended and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's a huge thing. You guys are building an app store, right, essentially? And I'm saying, well, what about? But I just wanted to say, thoughts about that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Sure. First of all, I love that. So one thing that is really wonderful, we are able to, wrap Drupal T around stuff even in JavaScript now. So we are really, I was actually hoping to engage folks today. We're at, let's say in Spanish, we're at maybe 20% of strings translated just today because download's already been translated, module has already been translated. For some of the other languages, we're maybe at 8%. We are trying to, by utilizing this in browser, we're trying to enhance translation capability. I don't know to what level we will be able to translate things like the full detail, but that's something that I have an eye on and would love to be able to do. We need people to think about how that's technically possible, but that came up early in our discussion, and I would love to do that. Good.
Thank you. I saw a demo of the project browser, and it says it has a default sets of filters. On the right side, on the left side, I saw there are 3 filters which says it's compatible with your version of Drupal, it's security updated and maintained. So I saw that those are radio buttons, but then we also talked that for advanced users, they want to search for modules which are not secured or nothing, or don't fall into any of those categories. Being it as a radio button also reduces that you have to select at least one category. I mean, you cannot just neglect. So is there any update path saying that it will be moved from radio buttons to checkboxes so that someone can just eliminate all the options and look for any kind of module that they're looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is feedback that we have received in the listening sessions. Actually, there was a couple of people yesterday that mentioned the exact same thing as you. So that's a something that we'll create an issue for, and we'll look at that. I don't know, you want to speak technically to that anymore?
Yeah, so we actually had those matching what was available on Drupal.org before and letting you pick from checkboxes. When we moved to having optional back-end sources, like for example, being able to put my own GitHub of 10 custom modules up there, we decided a little bit to simplify the contract where you can say, show me just things that are well maintained or show all. So you can still see things that are not secure, things that are maybe stale or not maintained, but they really fall into one of those categories. Show me the stuff that's well maintained or just show me everything. So we decided both for the technical reason, but also to make it easier as a filter to get rid of some of the Drupalisms that were tied to it to be able to just say, give me everything or give me just what is recommended and good. So we understand that's not the perfect solution. It still gives you that functionality, but we made it simpler so that we could make it more extensible. Yeah. Good. Another.
Hi. Well, I foresee some security concerns regarding giving writing permissions to the main composer. I don't know, have you planned something to do it through the UI or I don't know?
I can talk a little bit about how that composer process runs. First of all, one vision that I have, I'm not sure if we should separate this out, but if you think about a config split, right, where you might have stage file proxy only enabled on your local development environment. You might only have project browser enabled in your local development environment and not on your live site. So that will allow you to only run the composer commands where you would have been running them anyway from the command line. Also, the way that Package Manager works is it actually runs the full composer environment kind of on a cloned version of your site and make sure that everything validates. It's never going to upgrade. It's never going to downgrade a version for you, for example, and it's never going to upgrade to a version that is not marked as covered by the security policy. So there is some of that happening, but the idea is that you'll only theoretically be doing through the UI what you would have been doing on your command line locally before. Now, if some people treat it a little bit more like the Wild West and they want to run that on live, you're welcome to do that, but it's kind of up to you. But we do have some things in place to sort of mitigate what's going to happen with Composer. So we stage that all in an area, make sure that it meets all the criteria, and then it gets applied to your live site after the fact. So we have a little bit in place to help with some of that. Good. And I encourage you to talk to Ted Bowman as well and learn more about automatic updates. They solved a lot of that before we were even involved as well, so there's good stuff happening there.
So we're at time.
Yeah, we're a little bit over time.
So is yeah, and I think there are people coming in for the next session, so we can answer your question. You can come up or we can do it outside. Go ahead.
It's a very quick question, slightly related to translation. My question is that how does the description text relates to the info file, the description, because the translation is already solved, so we don't want to reinvent the wheel, probably. And also, it has a very grammatical structure. As a translator, I remember many maintainers starts this description text, allows you to do and the verb. So maybe it's just the question that how does it relate to?
Yeah. The short answer is I wish more, but it doesn't. We've talked a lot about how do we integrate the data that we get from Drupal.org over the API and the data that we're already providing in an info YAML. We've really leaned heavy on the Drupal.org data and not really at all on the info YAML, with the exception being if you enable that experimental core source plugin. I think we read some of the data from the info YAML there or the categories in order to figure out how to categorize them. There has been I've definitely heard from the community, how can we bring these things together? And that's something that we need more input on, but are looking ahead to. If we could pull descriptions from info YAML, or if we could pull categories from info YAML and consolidate all those into one grand library, we would like to do that, but we can't yet. Good. Thank you so much. Find us wherever you see us. Always happy to talk. Fill out your session.